It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello and welcome to RealAg Radio. I am your host on this Tuesday, June 18th, Lyndsey Smith, and I am absolutely so pleased to be here with you. You'll have to excuse me. I do have a bit of a cold. It's almost gone, but it does seem, doesn't it, that once you get sick once, you seem to just keep getting sick. And so let's hope this is my one and only summer cold. It has hit our family hard, and it is a tough time of year to be down and out, let me tell you. So I hope everyone is healthy and well where you are. We are also in the midst of a heat wave. So here in Eastern Ontario, where I sit, yesterday we almost hit 30 degrees Celsius. Today is supposed to climb up into the 32, 33 range. Tomorrow, even hotter. With the Humidex, it's supposed to feel like 45 degrees Celsius. That is a cooker, let me tell you. Now, alternatively, if you're in Western Canada and parts of Alberta and even parts of Saskatchewan, you've actually had light frosts or frost warnings. And that just seems to be the way this year is going to go. Let me know, of course, how things are where you are. I really do appreciate your feedback. It's been great to hear from everybody. And you know what we love? Wheat Pete often sends me, he CCs me in on sometimes on his responses to some of you, or he sends me some neat things because, of course, he knows I love agronomy as well. And it's always great to hear when people chime in from all across North America, let us know where they're listening from, and come up with, of course, where they may have a question of what they're seeing in their field. That is part of what we tackled last night on the Agronomists, and you're going to hear some of that at the end of today's show. So last night's show, I decided to go a little bit different. Instead of just focusing on one topic, we instead decided we were going to talk about a couple different diagnostic issues. So we had a couple pictures, a few things to look at and try and decipher what happened here. And we had some planting issues, we had some insect feeding, even some goose feeding, if you will. I had no idea that geese were absolutely so destructive, for one thing, and another, they actually pluck the corn plant out of the ground, eat the corn seed that's still there, and leave the top of the plant in a neat and tidy row. Unbelievable. Also jerks. Anyway, so stick around for the end of the show. I'm going to have a clip from last night's episode with Jason Vogt and Lauren Benoit. And one of the things that I wanted to pull was they had some great advice on what they have in their toolkit as far as when they are scouting, and also what they would love farmers or other agronomists to have on hand as far as information, records, etc., when they have a problem. And I think there's some great advice there. And of course, today we have a product spotlight with Nexus BioAg. We've got a clip of a pulse school. This is with Nicole Fox with BASF and Amber Bell talking about assessing inoculants and whether or not the inoculant is working and what to do about it, potentially if it's not. And I'm joined by Jim Tokarchuk. He's the Executive Director of the Soil Conservation Council of Canada to talk about where we see action going forward on this latest Senate Committee on Agriculture and Forestry on soil health. So stick around for that as well. That's in the third segment. If you've got feedback on today's show, as always, give us a call, 855-776-6147, or you can zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. And of course, find us across social media. We're everywhere. Drop us a DM and Paige will get that info to whoever needs it. Alrighty, let's take a quick break and I'll be back with a clip from the Pulse School right after this.
Choose Viatude fungicide and unleash best-in-class sclerotinia protection in canola and premium protection against white mold in soybeans. Viatude contains a powerful premix of Onmira Active and prothioconazole. This unique combo delivers high-performance disease control, crop safety, mix compatibility, resistance management, and advanced mobility for excellent coverage and superior plant protection. Choose Viatude fungicide for stronger, more vigorous crops.
I get to spend every day talking to farmers in the ag industry through RealAgriculture.com and RealAg Radio. But nothing is more fun than speaking to an audience live and in person. If you're planning an ag event, book a Real Agriculture speaker to make it a successful and memorable experience. Email shaney@realagriculture.com and you can book myself or any other Real Ag personality to speak at your event. Bring your audience all the fun, insight, and energy of Real Agriculture.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com, and what an opportunity! Oh my gosh! You think you can't grow better wheat? You are absolutely wrong. We're going to show you how to strive for those record wheat yields that they get in the UK and in New Zealand. You can grow 150 bushel wheat. I'll show you how.
Catch WheatPete's Word every Wednesday on RealAgriculture.com or download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on Tuesday, June 18th. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by MNP. You deal with many uncertainties on your farm. Managing risk should not be one of them. MNP's Ag team specializes in risk management. Visit mnp.ca to learn how you can stay ahead of the game and plan for the unknown. All right, it is the middle of June, which I can't believe. It has just snuck up on us and come up so very quickly. And that means, of course, early season scouting. And this is incredibly important for every crop that you grow. It's a great time to learn and assess how you did on the seeding and the planting pass. But it's also incredibly important to know what diseases, what insects you might be dealing with. And for pulse crops, it's incredibly important to assess how well the inoculant that you added to that pulse crop is actually nodulating on those roots and whether or not it's going to fix that nitrogen. So that is the topic of this clip from the Pulse School. So you're going to hear Nicole Fox of BASF and Amber Bell, our field editor out of Alberta, talking about choosing an inoculant, putting it on properly, but also assessing the job that it's doing in season.
So hi, Nicole. I guess the first question that comes to mind really is, why would a grower inoculate their pulses? What would be the purpose in that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is also unique to pulses. So why growers inoculate with pulses? Well, the rhizobia that goes down with the inoculant actually forms a symbiotic relationship with the plant, and it forms these root nodules, and what that does is it fixes nitrogen. So then it provides nitrogen to your plant, and quite a bit, like upwards of up to 90% of the nitrogen, which is a huge cost saver, and in terms of what they're applying for fertilizer in the spring.
Okay, so with the inoculants, what effect does that have on the stand establishment?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of stand establishment, again, the rhizobia does take some time to form this relationship with the plant and start actively fixing nitrogen. So early on, in terms of, plant germination or early emergence, not a lot is helping in that sense, but past that, it's really helping create a very vigorous system, and it gives you fuller leaves, bigger stems, and even larger roots, able to attract more water and nutrients. And another benefit unique with these inoculants is some of them, including even like the nodulator brands with BASF, they have additional biologicals added to them. And what these biologicals can do is, attract more water and nutrients, can enhance nodulation, and really help with early season crop establishment and continue with nitrogen fixation throughout the season.
Okay, so once you've inoculated in the spring, how long does that actually affect the plant? How long is it assisting that plant?
It is actually surprisingly long. So about 2 weeks after crop emergence, the nodules do start forming. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks after crop emergence before they're actively fixing nitrogen. So around there is our starting point, and it really does fix nitrogen until the end of flowering. And the maximum number of nodules and nitrogen fixation is really happening at about mid-flower. So that's when the crop needs the nitrogen the most and the highest amount of nitrogen, and really helping it get towards creating the pods and the seeds.
Right. And so how do you know that it's working? If you go out in the field, what are you looking for to know that your inoculant is doing what it's supposed to do?
Yeah, it's also a great question and something everyone should assess so that they know if they need to take any other measures to top up with any additional nitrogen sources. So when you go into your field to check your plants, you want to go around that 3 to 4 weeks after emergence. That's again when they start fixing nitrogen, those nodules. So what you're going to do is go into the field, make sure you're taking, again, a representative sample, so multiple spots in your field. You're going to dig out the plants, emphasis on that digging, because if you pull them, you will rip the nodules off and it might be misleading. So we're going to dig them out carefully. We're going to wash off the dirt so that you can assess the roots. You want to look at the number of nodules, the size, and even the color of the nodules. So when we look at the nodules, we're going to notice sometimes there is, if you use a seed-applied inoculant, the nodules will form primarily on your taproot. And if you use an in-furrow inoculant, usually it'll be a bit on the taproot, but more on that secondary kind of lateral roots there, because that's where those roots come in contact with the rhizobia. And then the last thing we want to do is also check that these nodules are actively fixing nitrogen. So you can pull some of those nodules off, slice them in half carefully, and we're going to look at the color. So the pink to reddish color means they're actively fixing nitrogen. If it's any other color like brown, white, green, they are not actively fixing nitrogen, so those are not providing any benefit to the plant.
Okay, so are there different types of formulations for inoculation?
Yes, there are actually. There's about 3 different formulation options out there. So there's liquid that applies to the seed, but some can also go in furrow. There is also peat, and some is self-adhering peat or not, and you require a sticking agent also applied to the seed. And lastly is granular in furrow that can be clay-based and peat-based again, that just goes in furrow below the seed. And really the options of those different inoculant types is really dependent upon the farm and the grower and what works best for him. Anything applied on seed has a very low on seed survivability, so that's the time that the rhizobia can survive once applied to the seed and being planted. A lot of growers are ready to do the on-farm inoculation, and some prefer to have the flexibility of going in furrow because you can just apply it at any time during the season. It really doesn't expire until the end of the season. As well, it gets you away from if there's seed treatment compatibility issues or anything like that.
So you're going to inoculate, let's say you're making that decision in the spring. Do you still need to fertilize? Can you get away without fertilizing?
Yeah, it's honestly a controversial topic, I find. There's been lots of research done that says your pulse crop will be fine without a starter fertilizer. However, what we do know is that pulses can only really fix about 50 to 80% of the nitrogen that they actually need. So really your best bet is start at the beginning of the season, get some soil samples from your field, take them into the lab to get assessed to figure out what your starting nutrient levels are at in the soil, and then figure out if you do need to add any additional nitrogen to offset what the plant cannot fix, as well is there any other nutrients missing, such as phosphorus, which is also an important one for nitrogen fixation. And even another point to remember is that the plants really only fix nitrogen in that first kind of 15 to 30 centimeters of the soil, so anything deeper won't really account for it. So really taking that full picture, understanding what you're going into, what you're seeding into.
Right. You can make a lot of other agronomic decisions based on soil sampling anyway, so it's really best practice all around.
Yes.
Right. And what are the chances of nodulation failing?
The chances, I would say, are dependent on the season every year. Remembering that inoculants and biologicals are living, breathing organisms, so many things can affect their survivability. So if we think about a couple different scenarios here, there's things like product quality. So how you store your inoculant once you get it on farm, we want to make sure that it's in a cool place, away from direct sunlight, away from drying winds, because that can really be detrimental to the rhizobia. Next, there can be things like application issues. So did you pick the right rhizobia for the crop? You know, what rhizobia is needed for peas and lentils is different from soybeans. So making sure you select the right inoculant, making sure it's compatible with the seed treatment you choose to go on your pulse crop, making sure you're applying it at the right rate. Anything lower might not be enough rhizobia to create effective nodulation. So that's not an exhaustive list, just to name a few. And then same with once it's in the ground, you know, again, exposure to the environment is harsh to these living, breathing organisms. So even in the first 2 weeks after seeding, if we have extremely dry soil, that can cause the rhizobia to dry out and desiccate and not be able to form that relationship. And another key point too, when we discussed starter fertilizer, is if you go in with a high rate of nitrogen fertilizer, the plant is naturally going to pick what's already available, then fix its own. So it's really making sure you have a fine balance between what you are applying for your nitrogen fertilizer and balancing it with what the plant can fix.
Great. That's a lot of really great information. And do you have any tips or encouragements for producers that are looking to inoculate their crops?
There are a ton of options out there. I can guarantee you're going to find something that fits for your farm, for the seed treatment you want to use, for the equipment that you use. So really ask your retail, reach out to your BASF rep, whatever you choose. And again, pulses, unique to them is inoculation and fixing their own nitrogen. Take advantage of it. Fertilizer prices are just keep growing, so try and save some money where you can.
Thank you to Nicole Fox and, of course, Amber Bell for bringing us that Pulse School. We're going to take a quick break, and I will be back with today's Product Spotlight right after this.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today. Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola. It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. It's now time for a product spotlight, this time with Nexus BioAg. And we're joined right now by Nexus BioAg's Manager of Agronomy. It is Mark Zatylny. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Hey, it's going pretty good. How's it going for you?
Really good. Awesome. We're really into the growing season. Need the heat to turn up here a little bit, indeed. But a lot better moisture condition across the prairies than we had going back 60 days ago, for sure. So, hey, Mark. A lot of exciting stuff happening at Nexus BioAg. Can you give us a bit of an overview on your portfolio in terms of biostimulants for the 24 growing season?
Yeah, for sure. So Nexus BioAg has launched 2 new foliar biostimulant products this season. The first one is Easy Grow Max. So that product, it contains 5 different biostimulants that work together to really promote plant growth, improve crop yield, and reduce the impacts of environmental stresses that a lot of farmers are facing these days with excessive moisture, cool weather. Some areas are getting drought and high temperatures as well. So this product can really tie into that. It also really is accessible to farmers because it has a low application rate that is consistent across a wide range of crops such as canola, cereals, corn, soybeans. So then the second product is the Easy Grow Cyto. So this one is containing 4 biostimulants that can be applied preventatively before a severe weather event or after to aid in recovery. So this really ties into any of the droughts, high temperatures, forecasted hailstorms. It is able to be similar to Easy Grow Max, applied to a wide range of crops at low, consistent application rates, and again, easily tank mixed and can be applied on its own as well.
So under what conditions would you recommend a farmer to apply Easy Grow Max?
Yeah, so there's kind of a couple different ones, especially with the variability that growers are facing these days. So it is a very versatile product that can be applied with all these different conditions. So I have a couple examples here. So those growers that, particularly in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, are facing with those really cool, wet conditions and crops are really struggling. this product is able to kind of provide that boost that the crop needs to grow through that stress. So some of the kind of active ingredients contained within it, providing that benefit, is a 0.2% chitin, which increases the nutrient transport and lateral growth of the crop. There's a 0.1% IBA, which increases that root development, creating a more robust root system to limit any of those negative impacts of excessive water. And then a third one is the 0.1% ascorbic acid, which is then going to help those roots that have been developed to be protected against waterlogging.
And what about Easy Grow Cyto?
Yeah, so Easy Grow Cyto is very much more tailored towards that preventative and recovery of any negative environmental impacts. So we know that there's going to probably be some big thunderstorms this year, and that can really impact the growth of a crop and your yield at the end. So some of the key ways this will help protect about that is, so for example, it has a 0.3% thiamine, which increases the natural plant defenses within the plant. And so if the crop is damaged by a hail event, that is then going to increase the risk of infection from a multitude of different diseases or insect damage. And having a biostimulant like that in it will then enable the crop to really power through that and use its own natural growth to resist any of those stressors.
What are the key advantages of using Easy Grow Max and Easy Grow Cyto?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work to kind of see how these products can really differentiate itself from all the other competitive biostimulants out there. And there's a couple really key ones. So one of the ones we always talk about that even I've brought up here is the transparency we have. So all of the actives are clearly labeled on the label so that we know that growers these days are really interested in doing their own research. They want to know what they're applying. They want to know what it does. The other ones, of course, are the rate and concentration of those biostimulants. So we have a much lower rate, such as, so the max is 46 mils per acre. The Cyto is 44 mils per acre. So that's a lot lower and a lot easier to add to an already, if you're doing a herbicide application, you can easily just add this in at the end and off you go and get all those benefits of these products. As well as kind of one of the biggest ones that we really took a lot of time to work on is the ratio of all of these different biostimulants. So they all do amazing things, but if you have, say, the gibberellic acid in Easy Grow Max that is working to make that plant taller and longer, you don't want an excess of that because then you're going to be more susceptible to lodging. But having that ratio then balanced with chitin for your lateral growth and IBA for your root formation, you really are able to maximize the benefits of all three of those without having one more than the other.
Mark, if somebody wants more information on Easy Grow Max or Easy Grow Cyto, where do they go?
Yeah, so definitely for more information, you can easily reach out to any of our territory managers. They will be able to provide all the additional information that we have, as well as our website, nexusbioag.com. If you're looking to kind of access the product itself, it's really been spread out across Canada. So any of the local retailers will be able to source it and get it out really quickly. So.
Great stuff. Mark, thanks a lot for joining us here today on RealAg Radio for this product spotlight.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. And it's a pleasure to speak about Easy Grow Max and Easy Grow Cyto.
Nice stuff. Okay, we'll be right back on RealAg Radio with more with today's host, Lyndsey Smith, right after this.
If you only listen to RealAg Radio, you only get half the picture. For greater insight into the issues that affect farming, tune in to RealAgriculture.com. Crops, livestock, machinery, farm management, and the markets, even food and travel. Real Agriculture Online digs deeper into the topics that affect the way you work and live. So get connected today. Read, watch, and listen to the people who know at RealAgriculture.com.
Infuse some energy into your next corporate event, customer meeting, or conference with RealAg Radio, Canada's national agriculture radio show. Create a unique experience at your next event with host Sean Haney, broadcasting RealAg Radio live on SiriusXM, featuring exciting guests, captivating interviews, and the latest news from the agriculture community. Contact advertising@realagriculture.com or call 587-787-1795 to book your on location with RealAg Radio today. To co-opt a phrase, we owe our existence to a few inches of dirt and the fact that it rains. And realistically, in the past, I'd say 10 years, the importance of soil health, soil management has really ramped up across North American agriculture, and for good reason. I don't think farmers have ever taken soil for granted, per se, but frankly, we've just become to understand so much more about soil and about what soil can do for crops. And we've started to really focus not just on what's above ground and the agronomy of the crop, but really to start looking at how what happens above ground really impacts below ground. This increased focus on soil health, of course, has reached all the way to the Senate. And last week, we heard from Senator Rob Black, and we saw the report that came out from the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Forestry calling for several recommendations, 25 in fact, to protect Canada's soil. Now, advocating for soil health and, in fact, a national soil health strategy isn't necessarily new. The Soil Conservation Council of Canada has been calling for this for quite some time. So, in response to this report, they are an organization, of course, that's quite pleased to see so much more attention being put on soil. For this interview, I go to Jim Tokarchuk. He's the Executive Director for the Soil Conservation Council of Canada, and we discuss not just a national soil health strategy, but the most hopeful things he sees in this report. I'm Lyndsey Smith with Real Agriculture and RealAg Radio, and joining me now is Jim Tokarchuk. He's the Executive Director with the Soil Conservation Council of Canada. Jim, welcome here.
Thank you, Lyndsey. Well, great to be here.
All right, so we saw recently the Senate Committee for Agriculture and Forestry launched its full report on soil, and there's a laundry list of recommendations. They heard from a lot of different people. I'm going to guess that your organization was one of those. Generally, to start, what did you think of the report?
Well, if I were a teacher and I was grading it, I'd give them an A+ and give them a pass from the final exam. I think really honestly, they did such a good job, Lyndsey, in covering the issues across Canada. If you do read it, you see that they really paid attention to the regionality of Canadian agriculture, and trying to wrap that up into a national piece. Well, it's really hard. I think they did a great job. And in their recommendations, when I look at them on the whole, I think that they really do identify things that need to be done, that are filling gaps that our organization has seen in some of our consultations. And they're also hitting the right tone, is that this needs to serve producers. It needs to be an industry-driven approach in the future, in collaboration with government and with industry and with farmers and ranchers as well. So I think they did a really good job of expressing it. The thing I'm really excited about is that this strategy, and one of the recommendations, and I can't recite them all, but one of the recommendations is that we declare soils a national asset. Mm-hmm. And I think that's brilliant, because soil health and soil conservation have really been the poor cousins for all my career, which, as you can tell from my hair color, is a long time. And it's always, anything that we've gotten done in soil health and conservation has been sort of a serendipitous connection to other priorities like production, which is good. And but now I think what his study is going to do is lead us to where we look at soil health as an essential part of our business, and we farm for soil health, we plan for soil health, and to me that's the most exciting thing. And then the rest of the recommendations they brought out are really good steps to achieving that. So mm-hmm. I'm really pleased with it. Our council is really pleased with it. Everybody outside of our council I've talked to in the last week is really sort of the standard line I'm getting is good job. Can't wait to see the action start to roll out.
So, and that is, of course, the most important part of any report like this, or, shedding light on the importance of soil, which I think the report does outline quite well as to, why it's an asset, why it needs protecting, and just how important soil health is to Canada as a whole, farmers, of course, but Canada as a whole. But the question is, and certainly there are recommendations, those require action. What would you like to see as the first set of action items that come out of this report?
Well, I think if you look at the the order they're grouped in, the first group talked about a couple of things that we can do really quickly, and one is to have they call it a soil advocate. And I think that's a great idea. Other countries have done that. That just means we have a strong national voice that continues on to talk about this. The Senate study's done. The senators will move on to other things. So I think right away that organization or voice needs to be named and put into place. And the second thing I think is to be able to continue to develop the actions and implementation plan of a national soil health strategy. So those are the first things. And, soon after that, we do need to look at a couple other things like how we keep incentivizing farmers to undertake soil health measures, how we're going to measure and monitor those impacts so we're accountable, and how we can report this. So, there's lots of things in between, but I think those things we need to do quickly. We need to have a strategy. We need to have ongoing leadership for soil health in Canada, and we have to think about how we incentivize farmers to continue to do those actions on their land.
Having a national soil health strategy is something your organization has been calling for before this report.
Yeah.
What have been the barriers to having it happen?
Well, I think I wouldn't call them barriers, but the challenges are that this is a cross-cutting issue. This is, it's not a simple thing. It's not about one crop. It's not about one species of livestock. We have to talk to all those groups. So getting some authoritative consultation with them is a challenge. We've done some of that. It is a challenge. So that takes time. The other thing is it's a complex strategy, and so we've been very careful not to make it look like we have a strategy in our back pocket that we want to impose upon people. The cake's not baked yet. So we've been very, very careful to build it on some principles, build our consultations on principles, and do it in as in transparent and inclusive manner as we can, and that all takes time. So time is a constraint.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've been very fortunate because we're getting excellent support for the concept of the strategy from our industry partners. We've talked to over 100 individuals and organizations, so that's a lot of people when you look at the multipliers that farm organizations bring in. And nobody said we're crazy, and nobody said we started with the wrong fundamentals of keeping it science-based, of looking at how we do technology transfer, how we deal with the sort of the awareness of soil health in general. All of those principles are things that people are really supporting. So challenges, not constraints at this point.
Now, looking ahead, let's say, and this might be a pretty big pull to actually see some action because, as you said, sometimes things move slowly and sometimes time ticks by before we get some of these things done. So let's imagine then that we have a soil health advocate in a national scope. We have the strategy sort of being put together. In 5 years from now, what would you deem a success as far as where this goes from here?
Yeah. So in terms of the success 5 years out, I think that, first of all, the profile of soil health as an essential ingredient to maintaining agriculture and our culture in Canada is well known. So the bumper sticker I have is soil is as important as air and water. So if that is a public reality in 5 years, good. If managing soil health is part of most farmers and ranchers in Canada's business plan, that would be a success. If we have a clear, and I'll say, let's back that up into 3 years. In 3 years, if we have a value proposition for soil health, and we don't know, we don't have the data, we don't have the research done to do that. If we have that in 3 years, that is a success. That would look really good. Mm-hmm. And I can't. It's a little early to have numerical targets, but I don't. I think it would be realistic to say in 5 years, if we have 90% of farmers in Canada actively conducting soil health, soil conservation measures on their land, then that would be a huge success.
I agree, and I think we can get there. I'll be honest.
I think. Well, I don't think we have a choice.
Mm.
We don't. Yep. We don't have a choice. And the other dream I have is that we have collective commitments, not only just from farmers, but we have commitments from government. And I'm really impressed with in the conversations I've had with government officials. They want to do this too, and we want to do it with them. And I also, in my dream, I see the big industry partners, that agribusiness, all doing the same as I've asked of farmers to do, is look at your business plan and where is soil health and conservation in it? What does that look like? How does that help your business? Because some companies do. Some of the large international companies that operate in Canada have sustainability commitments that they make every year in their business plan. And they're actively doing these things already. So seeing that spread is part of my dream.
Mm-hmm. That does, and we're out of time here, but it does bring in that piece, the science piece, as you said. One of the key components in this report is talking about how we need to set out parameters for measuring and quantifying soil health. That is a key part. I think we have components of that, but I think we can all agree that there's a lot left to be done on actually having something that accounts for regional differences, but definitely encapsulates different things we can measure, so it's not just subjective. So a lot of work ahead, but exciting times for sure. Jim, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks, it's a pleasure.
Let's take a quick break here on Rural Radio Channel 147, and I will be back with our last segment of the day here on RealAg Radio right after this.
How's your seed quality? What should you treat with? What about herbicide carryover and environmental concerns? Spring is here, and you've got a lot of things to think about in regards to your pulse crop. The Pulse School on Real Agriculture has information and advice for all these questions and more to help you navigate this season. Brought to you by BASF. Pulse School episodes are available at pulseschool.com, realagriculture.com, or as a podcast on your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
I'm Lyndsey Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomists with me, Lyndsey Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am, of course, your host for the day. It is Tuesdays with Lyndsey, and this segment is brought to you by AgZone Bin Logic. AgZone BinLogic is a grain monitoring solution designed to transform the way growers manage their grain storage. With streamlined installation, subscription-based pricing, and adaptability to your farm's needs, speak to your local co-op agro center expert today about AgZone BinLogic and see how we can help you protect your yields. All right, as promised, to round out the show, we've got a clip from last night's episode of The Agronomists. So on this episode, I have Jason Vogt from Field to Field Agronomy out of Manitoba and Lauren Benoit with Bayer Crop Science from near London, Ontario. And we are talking about the must-haves before you head to the field to scout. What are the must-haves as far as the tools that you're going to bring to the field? Jason, maybe I'll start with you. What are your favorite scouting tools or your must-haves?
For sure. Something that's pretty basic that we would all carry anyways for things that we do, but anything to measure plant stand. So your measuring tapes, your foot squares, anything for measuring foot a row, those kind of things. Soil probe. So for taking soil samples in case we need to do something in that regard, if it looks like it's a nutrient issue. Small vials, like just little plastic jars, for capturing or take, if it's, let's say it's maybe an insect issue that they're not sure about, or we're not sure how to identify, that sort of thing. And then any of the other type of diagnostic paperwork that we need for sending those kind of things away to get tested at a lab. So, tissue sampling bags, those kind of things. So those are some of probably the top things. And obviously your phone is a big part of it too. Picture taking, that's the big key right there. And just taking quality pictures from different angles, that type of thing is really key when you need to identify something. And then, just, being able to capture the information from the grower as far as time frame, timing, those type of things are all very key.
Lauren, what do you have that's a must-have that maybe adds to that list?
Yeah, that's a pretty good list. I think the only things that I would have, a trowel is always helpful, just a small shovel to dig up any root issues. Sometimes a jug of water is actually really helpful to, clean those roots off if you want to get a better look at them.
That's good.
And then I'll reiterate the phone and the notebook to take good notes, take a lot of photos. I noticed actually putting slides together for this that I don't have near as many photos as I thought I did of some things. So the phone and the notebook are kind of, if you only could bring two things, it's probably where I would start.
The other thing I would mention to add is Kleenex. So for the tears.
I was going to say, do you have seasonal allergies?
You have to tell them it's going to cost them money to spray for this or that or whatever.
For that, there you go.
Yeah,
I like the customer service aspect there, Jason. One thing I will mention, and we've had this conversation many times, and I think we've even written some articles on it, is how to take good diagnostic photos, and just how yes, our phones take phenomenal photos, but you can still screw it up in that if you don't have something for scale, or if you don't put it against a white background or something like that. But sometimes what we see, no matter how good our phones are, what we see with our eyes is not what shows up on the photo. So it's always good to really try and think about, okay, am I showing what needs to be seen and to scale in these photos? So yes, Warren adds a phone to georeference spots so you can actually return to the same spot. Also very important. Yes. Did we do flags before? I don't know. Is that what we did? Did we guess?
Yeah.
How did we go back to the same spot?
And that's a good point. Flags are still important too, but with a lot of our technology. So we use a scouting app from Fargo, North Dakota, from a company called Farm QA. And so all our field borders, all our boundaries, everything of our customers' fields are in that. And so you can always drop a point wherever you see something within that field, and it's all geo-referenced. So that's a good key point there that Warren makes.
Lauren, how many apps do you have on your phone related to scouting? Is it more than 3? Oh, there you go. You froze for a second.
I actually don't have. Sorry, you cut out for a second. I actually don't have too many, but Climate Field View is really the one I use. If you have a customer with climate, back to that point about scouting and dropping pins and taking notes, and then really like the Google browser and knowing which website you need to go to I find is a little bit more useful than any one specific app. The pest, and again, it's not an app, but the crop protection hub is kind of one that I use fairly frequently. And just the calling other people is also one that is probably my most used app when it comes to scouting and figuring out problems. Giving someone a ring and seeing if they've had a similar issue.
Yes, that's a very good point, Lauren. So I hope you're better than me at naming people actual names in your contact list, because I tend to give people nicknames. And I've realized this is a problem if I want somebody else to call someone on my phone. They don't know who the nicknames are. And so I should probably be far more accurate with who's in my phone. So that is also a very good point. Okay. I think the issue of here in Ontario this year, we had so much heat accumulation early. The weeds really got ahead of, and then we couldn't get the crop in the ground or necessarily spray. Like, we have some very large weeds that are past the point of easily controlling. Lauren, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, on that point, it was with how small the window was to get everything done this spring, often you prioritize planting over your herbicide pass. And yeah, there's, I don't know if it counts as an escape if you never even got your herbicide down, but there's certainly fields that cleanup pass is going to be pretty important.
Yeah. And maybe adjust your expectations. As you mentioned, Jason, trying to control canola that's bolted or, in early flower, you might, it's more revenge at that point than anything else. Yeah, you're not really getting control. Pete says you're lucky you were in the field. Mostly he gets a call when the crop hasn't emerged. So that brings us actually to a really good point. One of the reasons why we're talking about some of these things is, of course, trying to go through all the things that you need to know to try and diagnose a problem. So that's maybe a good question. I'll pose it to the two of you. Laura, maybe I'll start with you. Thinking about, trying to get a handle on an issue, what are the key pieces of information you would love an agronomist that's maybe asking you for advice on something they're seeing? What key pieces of information do you need to have to start digging into some of this diagnostics?
There's always kind of so many different things. A lot of the questions I like to ask off the bat are around, just digging into the problem themselves. So what sort of symptomology are they seeing? When did it start to show up? Is this something that they just saw yesterday? Or is it like, well, it's looked kind of, the corn came out of the ground and it didn't look quite right. So, when did symptomology show up? What exactly does it look like? And then on the management side, anything that they did in that field that they did differently than, the rest of their crop that looks good. So, how widespread is the issue? Our questions we're often asking, is this a few acres that are impacted? Is this a few fields that are impacted? And then really often kind of after that point, it depends on what sort of, if it's what sort of issue that they're seeing. And then you get into asking a few more specific questions, chemistries that were used, what stage was the crop at when any chemistry was applied, fertilizer programs. And then, after that, we kind of start digging into things, but really going into it, you kind of want to know, when the issue showed up, just as much about the issue itself as you can. When it showed up, how widespread it is, and anything really on that front.
Yeah, it's a really good point about the timing, and that immediately, you hope at least they know when it showed up, because that does give you at least a time frame of trying to line it up with either, a spray pass or a weather event or an insect moving in. Yeah, it gives you some frame of reference, but yeah, sometimes you don't always get that answer. Jason, what else do you usually ask, perhaps before you hit the field?
Yeah, so Lauren nailed the majority of them for sure. Touching on the thing about history, right? So field history. So the cropping history, products or fertility that was used there the year before, that type of thing can be pretty important to ask as well. But the big ones that Lauren already mentioned was the timing of things, right? So, if you're assessing things like, for example, I was scouting a field this morning looking at some canola, and a local grower was calling me, and he and his brother were driving by, and so they stopped me in the field, and they have a wheat field right adjacent to the canola where I was in. And so they said, you know what, we're not sure. It was, this canola died. We used a product that was a Group 2 product in our wheat, forgot that the volunteer canola that's in there is a clear field from a couple years ago. The MCPA in there should take care of them, but we're not sure. So can you have a look since you're right here and let us know if you think it'll die? That's fine, because I'm a great guy and all that, so I'm going to look for them, right? Sure. But they are a customer anyway. So, but the key was, okay, guys, what was the rate equivalent of MCPA used in there? How long ago did you spray it, right? And so, and what stage were the weeds at that particular case? And because of the way this situation has been here in Manitoba, if we've either been wet or we've been super windy, a lot of guys are spraying volunteer canola when it's pretty much bolting to flowering by the time we've been able to get in there. So not ideal conditions. And that's what the case was here too. But he says, okay, 5 days. That's when it was sprayed. So now going in, I can have a better idea of, okay, 5 days ago, this is the product they use, this is the symptomology I'm seeing. Kind of come up with a bit of an idea of whether I think it'll get controlled or not. So that was just a small part of it, but yeah, the big thing is just the key, even the groups, the herbicide grouping and the history, field history. Oh yeah, we had clear field here 2 years ago. Oh, okay, right? So
yeah. All right, we're going to end it there for today. Big thank you, of course, to Jason and to Lauren for joining me on The Agronomists. That goes every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find it at realagriculture.com/live. Or you can head on over to our YouTube channel, subscribe while you're there, set up notifications, and then when we go live on Monday nights, it'll send you that reminder. You can hop on. That's where most of the comments come from. We've got a really great group of farmers and agronomists from across Canada that make Monday night a meeting place to catch up, to see what's going on in the growing season, to ask questions. And I really appreciate that farmers and agronomists take time out of their busy schedules to join myself and my guests and really dig into a topic every Monday night. And you know what? It's a lot of fun. Everybody says hello and gets to check in. So you are also invited. Come and check it out. If you want to hear that entire episode, we of course have all our past episodes as well. You can find them on YouTube or head to realagriculture.com/agronomists. You will actually see we're on episode 158, I think now. And so there are plenty of past episodes you can go and check out. And yeah, it's a lot more fun to watch than listen, but I sure am glad you're here listening as well. All right. I did want to send out, so earlier today, as many of you know, we have a solar grazing operation here at Shady Creek Lamb Co. That me and my partner Chris run. And we had a great tour this morning at our local solar site where we lamb all of our sheep out. And we had a tour. We had a whole bunch of people from New York and different places come and check out what solar grazing is all about. And I wanted to send them a shout out because I promised that I would when I left them this morning. So shout out to everybody there and thank you for coming to join us. And of course, if you've got feedback on today's show or anything we do here at Real Agriculture, you can give us a shout on that feedback line, 1-855-776-6147. You can also email me, lsmith@realagriculture.com. Send me your thoughts, ideas, feedback, any of those sorts of things. I'd just like to hear about how things are going and where you catch this radio show. So would love to know if you listen to it while you're doing chores or in the tractor, whatever the case may be. And of course, find us across social media. We are on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, X, whatever, and realagriculture.com. We'd love to hear from you there as well. And hey, I'll be back for the issues panel on Friday. Lots to cover this week. So we'll talk to you then. Cheers, everybody.